Well, Slipknot's brand new album, We Are Not Your Kind, debuts in less than a month, and today I want to talk about the guitars and the gear used on the recordings of that album. Let's get into it. So what is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. My name is Ray. I'm a guitar player here on YouTube and an avid Slipknot fan, and this article in Guitar World magazine has got me super excited for a number of reasons. First obvious reason, Slipknot has a new album coming out in almost half a decade. Reason 2, more signature gear and more gear to potentially get on this channel. And number 3, the reason why you and I are here today right now is we can talk about the gear used on the recording of We Are Not Your Kind. Let's dive right in. And upon diving into this article and reading this article, I found it very, very surprising. First, we'll talk about Jim Root. My longtime viewers, my longtime subscribers, my friends here on my channel absolutely know how much I geek out on Jim Root, right? So let's talk about what he used first. He used his signature Jazzmaster. Now, it's not indicated if it's his new white Jazzmaster that is potentially for sale this coming year, maybe next year, we're not really sure. But Jim Root is quoted by saying it is one of the Jazzmasters that you, meaning the consumer, could go to your local shop, pull off the rack, and play. So there's no real any sort of custom shop or anything like that, no real wild specs or anything that you and I could not potentially grab ourselves, right? But the kicker is, he did confirm that he is having his own signature set of EMGs coming out. That is what is said in this article. Now, we can assume that it's the retroactives that are being seen used in all his guitars, especially in the live performance and the Unsainted music video. But he did in fact swap out his EMG 8160 combo and put in his new signature set of pickups. And I really can't wait to see what those pickups actually are. And the other guitar used on this album, he only used 2 guitars apparently according to this article, was his signature white Telly with the AMG 81 and 60. But he really didn't use this guitar too much. He used it more of a third track and layering track, which is really weird because Jim Root has always said, or at least majority of the time has said, his #1 white Telly has been used extensively on the recordings. But it seems to be now that he's kind of doing that thing where he's retiring it, so to speak, and kind of just bringing it out as needed and really isn't using it as his #1 workhorse. And I think that's because of the sentimental value attached to that guitar. Fun fact, I do have to correct myself when I was doing the gear through the years of Jim Root. That white Telly, his signature guitar, the #1 that he ever got, was in fact made in the United States. So it is not a Mexican Telly, it is actually an American Telly. Fun fact. Now let's talk about the amps used on We Are Not Your Kind. Jim Root only used 2 amps, and guess what? They're not orange. Really, really surprising. The main amp he used on We Are Not Your Kind is his Volume 3 Bogner Uberschall with the purple mod. Now, if you don't know what a purple mod is basically Channel 1 is revoiced to sound differently, more like a Marshall, I've heard. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Guitar players, musicians alike, they have their own quirky ways of describing sound. So it's just Channel 1's revoiced differently on his Bogner Uberschall. His purple mod amp was used 70% on the album, and the other amp was another Bogner Uberschall, used 30% of the album. But this amplifier doesn't sound as good as his purple mod Bogner Uberschall because there's something done behind the scenes to that amp that we really can't discern what exactly happened to the amplifier in a good way. Somebody went behind there with a screwdriver and started messing around with it, and long story short, it just sounds better. And that's all Jim Root used for this album. Pretty bare bones. Now, on to Mick Thomson. What Mick Thomson used on this album is the most unique and different in my opinion compared to what we know Mick Thomson did to love and use. He's always been an Ibanez guy and a Rivera guy. I mean, that's what he used for the longest time, with the exception of the early days. But from like 2003, 2004, up until 2016, he was solely an Ibanez guy, right? But then in mid-2016 on the summer tour, US tour of Slipknot's .5 The Grey chapter, he switched to a Jackson, right? And now we see him with his Jackson signature soloist. That was the main guitar used on this album. So this is the first time, I do believe, since the self-titled album that Mick Thomson is using a Jackson for the recording of an album. He used his 1994 custom shop King V on the self-titled album and Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, but now he's back with Jackson 20 years later. Pretty cool. But he did in fact swap out his pickups for one instance in the studio for recording We Are Not Your Kind. He swapped out his signature blackouts for some Seymour Duncan P90s. What? And then it gets crazier. He goes from his Jackson loaded with P90s into a fuzz pedal into a Fender 65 Reverb reissue. And Mick Thomson himself said that's an amp you really wouldn't ever expect to be on a Slipknot album. Pretty cool stuff. Very experimental, very unique. And then lastly, the amps that Mick Thomson used. This is crazy. This has got my interest very, very spiked for this company, Omega Amps. Now, Omega Amps only really has 2 amplifiers in their line, the Iridium and the Obsidian. I believe that's how you pronounce both of them. Now, upon reading this article, I went online and did my research on Omega Amps. They're based out of Michigan in the United States, and they do, in fact, only have 2 amplifiers. The Obsidian runs close to 3 Gs, and the Iridium is a single channel amplifier, so it runs about $2,200. I'm very curious to see if your boy can hook it up and get one of the 2 on this channel. But all in all, guys, I am blown away with the gear used for this album. It is such a change of pace for these guys. These guys seem to be like so, not one-dimensional, but they knew what they liked and they ran with it for over a decade, it seems. I mean, you can think of Jim Root and Mick Thomson using Ibanez and Fender and Orange and Rivera from 2003, 2004 up until close to present day, and now they've really switched everything around. Yes, they are using their own signature gear, and Jim Root is still using Fender stuff, but I think you guys can understand where I'm coming from. It is such a change of pace. It is not Orange and Rivera. It is not Ibanez and Fender. Like, there's all kinds of stuff, you know what I mean? So I think it's really, really exciting, and like I said in the beginning of this video, it's got my interest spiked to potentially grab some stuff from the recording of this album, not the actual gear, but the gear itself, and try to get it on this channel and see if I can replicate some of the sounds on the upcoming album, We Are Not Your Kind. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. I just wanted to share that article with you because I'm very, very excited about We Are Not Your Kind coming out. I'm very, very excited to talk about my favorite band of all time. They have an album coming out as I'm doing a YouTube channel, so it's just going to help us grow. It's going to be a lot of great content, and I'm really, really excited, guys. So be on the lookout for future Slipknot news and content in the guitar realm of things. I'm out of here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me that you guys continue to support me, watch what I do, and geek out alongside of me. It means the world to me. Stay metal, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Later.